Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of December 9th, 2024, which is coming to an end. So without any further ado, the city of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. Dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are no special announcements. I would like to call the meeting to order. We have quorum. Yes, we do, Your Worship. And are there any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest? Okay. Let's move on then to the adoption of the agenda. But we do have an item to add. Yes, at 11.4.3, the 2012 Amiro Street ratification of the acquisition of the property. Yes, can we have a resolution to this effect? Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question? None. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
No.
Contrary, nay. And it is adopted as presented. We are now at item 8, presentations, inquiries, and petitions. 8.1, inquiries by council members of the RCMP. Sergeant Sylvette Hébert, who is here this evening. Here we go. You have the floor and the microphone is on. It's always a pleasure to see you here. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening to Council. I'll try and do this a little quicker than last time. I think it was quite long last time. I just wanted to report that the RCMP and the community police officers, the representatives of the food bank in Albert County, as well as the members of the Riverview Council participated in the Stuff a Cruiser event in Riverview on December 3rd, which allowed us to collect $1,800 in donations and 600 pounds of food. I'd like to remind the residents that the event, Stuff a Police Car, will be held this Thursday at Sobeys on Régie Street. And if you want to support this cause for the Second Chance Food Bank, are welcome to participate in it. The documents of the ban on trespassing, we discussed in the past already. These documents were shared with the Ms. Palzer of bylaws. She has access to these documents and she can give notice of prohibited activities. And a 36-year-old was arrested in Ontario under an arrest warrant that was issued here at the Moncton Police Provincial Court. He was accused of having committed sexual assault on a child below the age of 16 in November 2024. He pleaded guilty and will get his sentence on January 9th. It's important to note that this person was located through the cooperation of the RCMP and the Waterloo Police Force. This was because of a citizen who informed us of Mr. Brown's presence in their town. We received a call about armed robbery at 669 Acadie Avenue last week, and 2 individuals were arrested following this robbery and other firearms offenses. During the incident, before the police arrived, a firearm had been discharged. A person was slightly injured after a physical altercation, but it was not treated. It was unrelated to the firearm. And as third, another person was arrested. Three of our investigators are now at the Canadian College in Ottawa to follow a course on major crimes and the exploitation of children on internet. Now, in terms of the patrols, Saturday was the National Day for the Prevention of Impaired Driving. 2 police officers were assigned to this. 2 individuals were arrested for impaired driving. During the weekend, we collected statistics on these different offenses. I wrote my notes in English. So we had one driver who didn't have a valid license. We also gave out 22 violations and 28 warnings. Over the last 2 weeks, we received a number of false alarms that take quite some time for police officers to respond to. We received 4 complaints of fraud, and I'll take this opportunity to remind citizens to be cautious when they receive phone calls or emails that ask for personal information. Financial companies will never ask for personal information from their clients on the phone, and it's better to do these transactions in person as necessary. There have been a couple of collisions on the streets because of the road conditions recently, because of this little snowstorm we had. There were a couple of requests for service under the Trespassing Act were received, and at the Champlain Mall, the Irving on Dieppe Boulevard, Irving on Champlain Street, 100 Rue du Marché, as well as Mathieu Martin Street, Canadian Tire, 663 Acadie, the Tim Hortons in Renspet. I just mention it because it's related to people who were unhoused and very vulnerable who were reported in the Dieppe area. And that's all for me this evening. Thank you, Sergeant Hébert. Any questions from council? Councillor Godbout. Ms. Godbout, yes, Councillor Godbout, yes. And in 2025, when we meet, might have some questions to ask you on the monthly reports that are online so that people can look at the trends and statistics and information. Sometimes we see the type of theft under $5,000, break-ins, and so I would invite you to look at it just before you come, and if so that we could. I really appreciate the updates you give us in the reports, but in the future, could we have a discussion on the statistics that are report not every month, but once a month? And I'd just like to remind the public that these statistics are on the website on the different types of offenses, what's happened, what's taken place in the community. And we have a community that is safe, and the crime level is very low, but I think that's important to point it out to people. So I just wanted to ask you and to thank you for all of the work that you do here, and welcome to Dieppe. We're happy to have you. Yes, I just have a question. Are there any details you want me to report on specifically? Is there anything specific? Well, just things that we see. What concerns people are the number of crimes committed, or is the trend up or down, the number of offenses under $5,000. This is what concerns people most. We also talk about speeding here, but there's bylaws and traffic offenses, just to bring it to the attention of councillors, but sometimes just to say if things are going up or going down, if there's anything you can remind us of, to help people to help themselves, to continue to make sure that the communities can remain safe for all. Thank you. Yes, and I just want to add that you all received my email. If there are any details that you'd like me to bring up, just send me an email and I'll be happy to. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. So if not, once again, thank you for being here. It's always important to keep the council up to date, and we really appreciate your presence. If you leave, we understand that you have other things to do, I'm sure, but you are welcome to stay if you like, of course. Which brings us to presentation at item 8.2, a presentation on the transfer of funds and the from to and from the reserve funds with our preferred financial officer, Mr. Thériault.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire, membres du
Good evening,
Conseil.
Your Worship, Council, colleagues, and public. This evening, we're going to talk about the end-of-year transfers. Usually, these are presented at the last meeting of the year. It's also to explain the 4 resolutions that you're going to have to vote on this evening. 3 are on the transfers themselves, 2 different reserves, and a 4th that is on the different commitments within each of the reserves. To start, so we start with the general operating reserve. This one is set at 5% of the 2-year previous, of the 2 previous years. So it's 3.55 million, which is the maximum that we can put into this budget. And this is what I'm proposing this evening. In order to do that, we have to transfer 327,000 from the general operating fund to the general operating reserve. And I left this line blank. Well, there are 2 things. Quite often, well, we put money into the reserve and we take money out of the reserve, but a little further, I'm going to talk about the reserve itself on slide number 5, I believe, and I'll explain why this amount is 0 here. But for now, the strategy is to maximize the reserve. We need $327,000. We take it from the operating fund and we put it in the reserve in order to top it up. And then there is the general capital fund reserve. One of the main sources of the funds that we need to use for these projects come from the general operating fund. Here we are proposing to send 8.991 million from the general operating fund to the general capital reserve, and it's divided into 4 parts here. First of all, 3.2 million is going to the asset management replacement program. In our operating budget, we have 4.5 million originally to send to the asset management. We used a part of that, so which leaves 3.2 million, which is transferred to a reserve in order to use it later on. Now, for the capital operating fund, we had 8.5 million. We used 6 million, so 2.7 million is transferred to the reserve for the projects that will be ongoing in 2025. And this is a big amount here that we have to work with engineering, public works, and recreation for each capital project that is ongoing. That is, we have to know exactly how much is going to be spent up to December 23rd in order to be able to transfer the appropriate amount. Thirdly, we talk about the operating budget. So the surplus in 2024, we've already talked about this somewhat. There were vacant positions, so there's surplus in salaries, the construction permits, building permits that were higher than forecast. There was some interest. So this, instead of leaving this in the operating budget, we transfer it to the reserve in order to be able to use it in 2025. And I'll come back to this a little later. So that's 2 million. And then lastly, the municipal rules are such that when we have a surplus, when we do our financial statements at the end of the year, in this case, in 2022, we had a surplus of 600,000. In 2024, we have to recognize this as a revenue, but we transfer it to the reserve. So we're not going to use this 600,000 to balance our budget. We're going to put it we put it as a revenue, and then we make it an expense, and transfer it to the reserve. And this is what I'm proposing here, to transfer it to the reserve. So that's for what we sent to the reserve. We also take money from the general capital reserve to fund our ongoing capital projects. For example, at the last meeting, we authorized this. We had $33 million in capital budgets last year. This 33 million was funded partly by the reserve, by the operating capital, by borrowing, and so on. So the part of in the reserve, so at the end of the year, we look at all of these projects, we look at what was spent, and if we need, I don't know, let's say there's a project at the roundabout that we at Gauvin La France. There was money in reserve for this project. We spent that money at that time, and this is the time to take them out of the reserve. And this is what we're proposing here, 3.7 million. Thirdly, we're talking about the water and sewer operating reserve, $730,000. We're proposing to not put anything into the reserve nor take anything out. A little bit like earlier when I talked about the general operating fund, it's set at 5% of the previous two budgets, and so $73,000. We were able to realize this last year. Last year was 690,000, but there was interest of $40,000 accumulated. So 690,000 plus 40,000 in interest, which gives us 730,000, which is the maximum that we're allowed to put into this reserve. So we don't need to put anything in or out of it. So there will be no resolution on that reserve this evening. Fourthly, we're talking about the water and sewer capital reserve. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the operating fund that is transferred to the reserve that isn't used during the year. In this case, we're talking about 1.2 million. So there's 200,000 that is on the asset management fund, 500,000 for the operating capital for ongoing projects but the money that hasn't been used and 500,000 that is, we had already planned on spending it last year. That was the 2024 budget. I mean, we're still in 2024, but I'm working on the 2025 budget. So in 2024, we had planned sending 500,000 to the reserve. And so once it was surplus of 2022. It's the same thing as earlier. So $500,000 there. And secondly, we transfer from the water and sewers capital fund to the capital reserve. So we have a revenue in the capital fund. It's the charge area. Yes, thank you. It was the charge. Yes, the charges for Dieppe Boulevard when we prolonged it, extended it in 2014, 2015. So there's still revenue coming in from that. So it's transferred to the reserve. And there's a $1.3 million from the water and capital reserve, water and sewer capital reserve to water and sewer capital fund. So these were monies that were used for different projects, but we took them from the reserve to fund them. So it's 1.3 million. Now I'm going to talk about the what's being earmarked for each one of these reserves. There's quite a bit of detail here, but I'll try and go through it quickly. So the operating reserve, as I mentioned, there's a maximum of 5% of the previous two budget years. The strategy here is to maintain as much as possible for one-time expenses. You can see that the last three lines, the last two, talk about these one-time expenses. So let's go in order here. So first of all, we talk about the asset management. We're going to put money aside to manage our assets. Here we're talking about buildings mostly and information technology. So those are the two reserves here. We're talking about unforeseen expenses, expenditures to come, 900,000 for the general, 400,000 for water and sewage. For the snow, for example, if we have a big winter, like the way it seems to have started, if we go over our budget and we don't have a surplus to pay for that deficit, there's a reserve for it. We also have a program for affordable housing. So this is the third year that we're putting money aside in order to be able to offer incentives, and we're at 400 or $500,000, I think. But it's a reserve that is there that or that will be there, and once these funds are become available, they will go to the reserve. There are some smaller amounts that are operational expenditures that weren't used in 2024, but that we want to push back to 2025. For example, $65,000 for a Francophone event that wasn't held. So we transfer it to the 2025 reserve. So it's available as well as the budget for 2025. So it doubles the budget for that event. And the fourth and fifth lines here, as I mentioned earlier, these are for one-time expenditures. We had some expenditures, 1.6 million in 2024. We spent about $900,000. So there's $700,000 of one-time expenditures that are left over from 2024 that we'll spend in 2025. And in the presentation, the last meeting, we had some one-time expenditures in 2025 that are budgeted at 100% of the reserve. For all these new one-time expenditures will be funded by the reserve. So that gives a total of $3.6 million for the general operating reserve. Now, for water and sewage, it's the same thing. It's 700,000, which here you can see that unforeseen or this is a surplus of $400,000 that can be used for different things. It can be used as a stabilizing reserve, for example, so that the prices don't fluctuate too much from one year to the next, or if anything happens, we can go into that reserve so that the unit price doesn't become too high the following year. And we have one-time expenditures of $100,000 that will be funded through the reserve to come up to a total of $700,000. Any questions so far? Okay, so let's move on. Last page here. We're talking about the capital reserve. Now, we can put as much money as we want to in this reserve. There's no maximum. So there are 5 different items, different types of projects or expenditures that are associated to this capital reserve. First of all, there's the asset management. Asset management. Here we have the municipal fleet. We have buildings. I think we're at $3 million reserve for the fleet. We have 1 million for buildings. There's about 5 million for other assets. And these assets are not identified, but they're other assets other than the municipal fleet and buildings. So essentially it'll be roads, trails, sidewalks, curbs, the type of asset that don't come under one of the other categories that I mentioned. So this is one of the great reserves that we do have to allow us to go forward. And this goes along with asset management. We know that according to the useful life, towards the end of the 2030s or in 2040, a number of our assets will have to be replaced. And that's why we want to build this reserve for asset management. And we have some some pending real estate projects, projects that are not underway yet. They're not ongoing, but they're coming. So there's a 2.7 million there and 7.7 million for water and sewage. We have some capital projects in progress as well. And this is the big part of it. We have 13.8 million in this fund. I talked about the roundabout, but now we can talk about the Fox Creek Trail. Well, we've done Fox Creek, but we haven't done Melançon in Harris, so there's money set aside for that. We also have the improvement project for L'Acadie and Champlain. We've been accumulating money for 2 years. We haven't done the work yet, but the money is there in the reserve. So it's this type of project that is underway. It's not finished yet, but work that will continue on in 2025. So 13.8 million for the general capital and reserve, and 2.3 for water and sewage. We have different capital projects that were presented at the last meeting with $1 million for the general, about $1 million for the water and sewage, and difference, and that will come out of the reserve as well. So, and the last one, so it was 6.8 million for the general, 0.2 million for the water and sewage, and the uncommitted funds. For example, if we're going to open up an RFP, this is where we're going to realize that if it's too high, if they come back too high, we can use the reserve to these uncommitted funds to pay the difference. So it's 1.9 million for the general and 1.4 for water and sewage. So that's what we have in the reserve at the end of 2024. Thank you. Questions from council? No questions? Well, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Alors, ça m'amène à l'item 9.
Which brings us to item 9. Questions from public? No questions? So let's move on. Let's move on to the adoption of minutes. First of all, 10.1.
Au numéro 10, adoption des procès-verbaux. Okay.
Yeah, 10.1. The regular council meeting minutes from November 25th. Yes, the meeting November 25th. It's moved and seconded. So on the question, no questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. So the minutes of the meeting of November 25th are adopted as presented. We're now at 11 for motions, memorandums, and nominations. 11.1, administration, ratification of the directives adopted at closed meetings. Mr. Melanson. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. As His Worship mentioned, every now and then when we have these directions that are completed, we make them public. I'm going to share 4 directives this evening. First of all, there was a project for a call for interest to participate in the welcoming Francophone communities. It was an initiative in cooperation with the Association of Francophone Municipalities of New-Brunswick. We had presented an application with Kapakadi, Memramcook, and Shediac jointly. Our application was sent last year or during this year. We received a response saying that we were not selected. So this is made public now to make sure that it's completely transparent. The second directive we had presented to council asking for the creation of a new legal position. Council had asked for a justification of the investment and the cost that the municipality invest in an outside firm. So the directive of the council was to proceed to the creation of a new legal position within the clerk's office. And so that we're making that public. And the third one we're making public this evening, we also asked to create a position that hadn't been as planned for in 2024. It's the creation of a new analyst position within the finance department to help on the technological infrastructure, and it will help the IT service. So this has been done. And the last directive, and I'm pleased to announce that lawyer who is going to fill the position that was announced is Stephanie Luce. She'll be starting at the beginning of the year. We've already met with her several times, and she's going to be welcomed here, and she's certainly going to add a lot of value to our organization. These are the 4 directives here this evening.
Déjà été accepté par le Conseil.
So since it was already accepted by Council, all we have to do is read the directives out. So Councillor Turgeon-Roy, please, would you read that resolution? Thank you, Your Worship. That Council ratify the directives adopted at closed meetings of Council concerning the following topics. 1, call for interest welcoming Francophone communities, adopted April 8, 2024. 2, new position, clerk's office, adopted May 13, 2024. 3, new position, finance department, adopted September 23, 2024. And 4, hiring, legal position, adopted November 25th, 2024. I so move. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented.
Oui.
Community development. So this next item has to do with the signing authority for a partnership agreement with the Dieppe Soccer Club. So like we've done with pickleball and tennis, we have an agreement that sets out the parameters with this club. And so the rates, for example, the land attribution, the use of the storage unit, and the office space at the Uniplex. So the partnership is good for the next 3 years, and it sets out all the details of the agreement. Councillor Gaudette, would you read the resolution, please? Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the municipal signing officers to sign the memorandum of understanding between the City of Dieppe and the Dieppe Soccer Club. I so move. Moved by Councillor Gaudette, seconded by Councillor Jeannet. On the question. Councillor Godbout. And this is just for the public, but since there have been a lot of details, or there have been a lot of changes with the club, could you give some more details for the public so that people know what this new approach entails? So as the CAO mentioned, we have a new shed. There's also everything that's happening with community development, the expectations with regard to collaboration and with our community officers. And there's also the office space. So the Dieppe Soccer Club now has office space at the Uniplex. So at one point, there were a lot of things, and we wanted everything to be kind of in one single document, so that everything that we had with regard to Dieppe Soccer Club. So does that meet the club's needs? I know that they had different requests, and we see the things that progress has been made, but will this help them grow and continue to do what they're committed to doing in their strategic planning? Well, it's a beginning. I think the biggest thing was the agreement with the sharing spaces with schools, so they'll be able to play all 4 seasons. But we'll continue talking with them. This is a 3-year agreement, and we can make changes as things unfold. Any further questions? Not seeing none. Who would like, or all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution at item 11.2.1 passes. That brings us to 11.3 finance, so 11.3.1, Mr. Melanson. So Mr. Thériault explained the transfer of funds briefly. So the next four resolutions are directly related to his presentation. So 11.3.1 all the way up to 3.4 are attached to that or related to that accounts to the presentation. So who would like to read the resolution at 11.3.1? Councillor Turgeon-Roy? Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $327,000 from the General Operating Fund to the General Operating Reserve Fund. I so move. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Lanting on the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. Who'd like to tackle the next one? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $8,991,000 from the General Operating Fund to the General Capital Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $3,681,000 from the General Capital Reserve Fund to the General Capital Fund. I so move. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Jeannet on the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. 11.3.3 now. On the transfer of funds. I'll get there. Councillor Lanting, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $1.2 million from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Operating Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund. That Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $145,000 from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund. And that Council authorize a transfer in the amount of $1.341 million from the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund to the Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Fund. I so move. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. That brings us to item 11.3.4, commitments, various reserve funds. Who would like to read that? Councillor Jeannet. This is the longest resolution, Your Worship. Thank you. That Council authorize the following commitments from the following reserve funds. So General Operating Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8910. 1. Unforeseen expenditures, example, emergency measures, snow removal, $300,000. 2. Affordable housing, $372,000. 3. Information technology, various software, $53,000. 4. Asset management program, buildings, $610,000. 5. Asset management program, information technology, $181,000. 6. Stabilization reserve, $69,000. 7. Facilities, sports and public fields, $50,000. 8. Clerk's office, software maintenance, Laserfish, $42,000. 4. Insurance potential claims, $25,000. 10. 2024 operating expenditures postponed to 2025. A, planning and development charge bylaw, $10,000. B, leisure, francophonie event, 65,000. C, leisure, new identity festival, 15,000. D, tourism package and committee, 10,000. E, urban mobility parking study, 25,000. F, environment, tree planting, 66,000. 11, 2024 one-time expenditures postponed to 2025. So A, planning and development, urban growth strategy and secondary plan, 240,000. B, administration, market study, Dieppe market, 150,000. C, administration, francophonie initiative, 100,000. D, communications, downtown signage, 100,000. E, immigration, strategy and collaboration, 35,000. F, heritage, women trailblazers bank project, 30,000. 12, 2025 one-time expenditures. A, urban mobility, infrastructure, new route stops, $20,000. B, buildings, development, city hall and furniture, 90,000. C, buildings, valve replacement, uniplex, 50,000. D, buildings, radiator, skating oval, 35,000. E, fire department, engine replacement, antique truck, 25,000. F, engineering, traffic studies rather, Champlain Street, 100,000. G, engineering, municipal street assessment, 30,000. H, heritage, municipality's 75th anniversary book, 50,000. I, heritage tour, 10,000. J, leisure, recognition wall, uniplex, 50,000. K, environment, ecological network study, 50,000. L, environment, urban forest management plan, 50,000. M, environment sustainable development plan, ecological transition, 60,000. N, information technology, IT consulting, 2025 various projects, 125,000. O, tourism facility improvements, Jeux de l'Acadie, 108,000. P, tourism, event strategy and tourism action plan, 6,000. Q, public works, consulting, needs analysis, operation center, 75,000. R, planning and development, preliminary study, municipal development plan, 60,000. For a total of $3,545,000. Now, water and wastewater disposal operating reserve fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8930. 1, stabilization reserve, $393,000. 2, asset management program, information technology, 92,000. 3, potential claims, 25,000. 4, IT, unforeseen expenditures, 11,000. 5, clerk's office, records management software, 10,000. 6, 2024 one-time expenditures postponed to 2025. A, new water master plan, 22,000. B, airport pumping station, pump conversion, 40,000. C, future pumping station, pre-design study, 30,000. 7, 2025 one-time expenditures, A, IT consulting, 2025 various projects, 25,000. B, assessment, well commissioning, water source, 80,000. Total, $728,000. General Capital Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8920. 1. Asset Management Program, $9,737,000. 2. Pending Capital Projects, $2,701,000. 3. Current Capital Projects, $13,783,000. 4. Capital Projects 2025 Financing, $6,778,000. 5. Capital Projects Uncommitted, $1,929,000. Total, $34,928,000. Almost done. Water and Wastewater Disposal Capital Reserve Fund, account number 7-4-20-12-8940. 1. Asset Management Program, $1,379,000. 2. Pending Capital Projects, $755,000. 3. Current Capital Projects, $2,354,000. 4. Capital Projects 2025 Financing, $150,000. And 5. Capital Projects Uncommitted, $1,357,000, for a total of $5,995,000. I so move. I think sorry, I've had a so the Councillor Thibodeau, I'm sure he'd be happy to second it, because traditionally he's the one that has to read these long motions. So, and we know that it's a very long document to read there. So, but he usually gets it. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. And thank you for your patience. 11.3.5 Insurance Renewals for municipal vehicles, buildings and liability, liabilities for directors and elected municipal officials, fiduciary liability and environmental liability.
Environnemental et municipaux fiduciaires.
Oui, alors, Monsieur le maire,
So, Your Worship, as you know, we usually deal with Champlain, and that individual is in this room, or we use a broker, Champlain, and he goes and gets the best rates possible so that we can protect ourselves. So the first category is municipal vehicles, buildings and liability. We've also got liability for directors and elected municipal officials. So we've decided to go with Arthur J. Gallagher Canada Limited for $896,283. For the fiduciary insurance policy, we decided to go with Travelers for $4,830. And then the last form of insurance, we're recommending to go with AXA XL Specialty Insurance Company for the amount of $27,058. So one thing that we've added this year is, rather than going for a 12-month coverage, we are going for 18 months. That's what's being recommended to us. And we stand to save about 1 or 2% on the rate. So if we look at the entire amount, we're talking about a 6% increase in premiums for our insurance for the next year and a half. So this is a recommendation from our broker, and we support that recommendation. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Lanting, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the renewal of the vehicles, buildings, and liability insurance policy, as well as the liability insurance policy for the directors and elected municipal officials with intact public entities, payable to Arthur J. Gallagher Canada Limited at the cost of $896,283 for an 18-month period from January 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. That Council authorize the renewal of the fiduciary insurance policy with travelers payable to Arthur G. Gallagher Canada Limited at the cost of $4,830 for 2025, and that Council authorize the renewal of a pollution and professional environmental liability insurance policy with AXA XL Specialty Insurance Company payable to Arthur J. Gallagher Canada Limited at the cost of $27,058 for 2025. So moved by Councillor Lanting, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. 11.3.6 now. Canada Community Building Fund, the 5-year capital investment plan for 2024 to 2028. Mr. Melanson, please. So this is a program that used to be called the gas tax plan. This is a 10-year agreement that the province signed with the federal government. So we are eligible for some funding from this project. The amounts that we get over the next 5 years will start with $2 million in the first year and end up at about $2.2 million in the last year. So for the first 5 years. So there are a series of projects that are recommended and that fit within this project. Infrastructure revitalization, construction, and water and wastewater as well. So these amounts will be dedicated to these various projects. So this is for your approval. We're asking for approval for the first contribution year. So who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Turgeon-Roy, please. That Council authorized the City of Dieppe's 5-year capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund for the 2024-2028 period. I so move. Thank you, Councillor. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Lanting. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. 11.4 now, engineering. 11.4.1, engineering services. Mr. Melanson. So during the budget process, we looked at this project. This is a project that's being done in partnership with the province. If we hire Englobe Corp, this is for the project going from aviation to Lorette, and this resolution is to fund the plans and specifications. All right, who would like to read the motion? Councillor Brideau, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorized Englobe Corp to undertake the engineering services for the project entitled 2025 Champlain Street Repaving at the cost of $70,000 plus HST, and further authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7675, General Capital Budget, Champlain Street, Mill and Pave from Aviation to Lorette, and account number 4-3-90-58-7675, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Champlain Street, Mill and Pave, from Aviation to Lorette. I so move. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Godette on the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. Moving on to 11.4.2, milling and paving. All right. Also known, this is for various streets. We would like to go and to hire Englobe Corps to prepare plans and specifications for the work that will be done on various streets in the upcoming budget. So this is for engineering services. All right. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Godbout? Point 4 or point 2 or point 3 or point 4? Point 2. That Council approve the engineering services undertaken by Englobe Corp for the project entitled 2024 Mill and Pave Various Streets at the cost of $75,000 plus HST, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7601, General Capital Budget, Asphalt Management. I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Godbout, seconded by Councillor Jeannin on the question. All those in favor signify by saying yes or by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. Moving on to 11.4.3. Mr. Melanson. As part of the Dieppe Boulevard construction, the work began this year on phase 1, and to get to Dover Road, we're recommending to confirm the acquisition of property at 2212 Amiro Street. So this is to purchase this property to complete the connection to Dover Road for an amount of roughly $442,000. So who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Godette, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the staff to proceed with the acquisition of the property at Amiro Street, or 2212 Amiro Street, for roughly $442,000, which is required for the extension of Dieppe Boulevard. That the Council authorize that this account be taken from the appropriate fund, or appropriate account rather, and approves the condition of purchase as specified in the agreement dated December 4th, 2025. So moved by Councillor Godette, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Seeing no questions, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. 11.5.1 now. Appointments to the Planning Advisory Committee. Mr. Melanson. All right, periodically positions become vacant on this committee. So there are 4 people this evening that either have to be renewed or we need new people to fill these positions. And that ensures continuation of and experience on the committee. And I think there will be yet another position that will need to be filled as well. So if people are interested in sitting on this committee, among the councillors, or if there are members of the public, please notify us, and we will take that into consideration at future meetings. So, and that's to fill the positions. So, and these people will be appointed upon reading of this resolution. Thank you, Your Worship. That council appoint the following persons to the Planning Advisory Committee: Claudette Leblanc, renewal, term ending December 31st, 2025. Richard Godet, renewal, term ending December 31st, 2026. Vincenzo Della Donne, term ending December 31st, 2027. And Michel Savoy, term ending December 31st, 2027. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Rideau on the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented.
11.6.1 adoption.
11.6.1, the adoption of policy Z-6. Here we recommend that you adopt a policy that was reviewed by staff in the different departments. This is a policy on the fees for the installation of water and sewage services for properties on our territory. What is changed are the three elements that follow. The policy will only apply to residential, single family, and double homes, and that the commercial projects come under bylaw 78.5, and we review the costs based on real costs. In the past, we used estimated costs. And if you look at the reality here, and so taxpayers would have to pay for a part of the cost for the person who was asking to be connected to a water and sewage. So now if you ask for the service, you have to pay for the complete connection. So these are the key elements that have changed. And there was a correction, a couple of corrections to typos and the grammatical errors, but basically that's it. And we recommend that you adopt it and that it can come into effect starting with the new construction period. Thank you. Who would like to read these by title only? No, it's a reading of the full resolution. What's in the resolution here? Okay, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Lantaigne. That council repeal policy S-W12 2011 entitled Fees, Installation of Water and Sewage Services Laterals, and adopt policy Z-6 2024 entitled Fees, Installation of Water and Sewer System Laterals. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. If not, all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. And it's carried as presented. 11.6.2, signing authority for a lease renewal. Mr. Melanson. Yes, we had purchased a fairly large lot to obtain water in Lakeville. We purchased it, and at that time we had a rental agreement with the family who owned the property, John and Faye Mitten, for a 10-year period, and all of the costs associated to allow them to, all of the costs to allow them to stay in their house were theirs there. So we thought it was important to have this agreement because it allowed us to have a presence and to have eyes on the property. So it was an added value to have somebody remaining in the house. And these people are still in good health, and they would like to renew this lease under the same terms and conditions, no change except for the dates, no change to the agreement at their request, and we're comfortable with this renewal. There's still a clause in there that allows us, if necessary, to activate the source of water, but we have an agreement with the city of Moncton on the purchase of water for the next few years. So we recommend to proceed with the renewal, and I think it's a win-win situation for Mr. and Mrs. Mitten and the city of Dieppe. Our recommendation is to renew this lease. Thank you. Who would like to read it? Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council approve the renewal of the lease between the city of Dieppe and John and Faye Mitten for the rental of the house located at 1949 Route 134, Lakeville, New Brunswick, pursuant to the same terms and conditions outlined in the lease signed in 2014, and authorize the municipal signing officers to sign the addendum. Yes, the addendum, renewing the existing lease until December 18th, 2034, and I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Jeannin, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. We now move on to 11.6.3. Mr. Melanson. Yes, you'll remember that we had advised our citizens that we were going to demolish the culvert between Airview towards the Boys and Girls Club. So it was for safety reasons. We also said that we were going to find an alternative to allow them a safe access to the Boys and Girls Club for the people who live in that neighborhood. So there's a public road is going to be built shortly, and we received the plans, and we started building a trail from Lorette to Emmanuel Street, and this resolution then will authorize the total cost to J.K. Fraser and Son for the construction of this trail. And I think that it has been completed, or it should be, or just about to. So people will be able to use it shortly, if not already. And this is to authorize the expense. The project is almost complete. Thank you. Who would like to read it? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorized the payment of $69,800 plus HST to J.K. Fraser and Son for the construction of a trail between Lorette and Emmanuel Streets, and further authorize that this expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7684, General Capital Budget, Active Transportation Connection, Lorette Street, and I so move it, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne. Sorry about that. On the question. If none, all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. 11.6.4, a tender award. Mr. Melanson. Yes, you have a recommendation to proceed to award a contract after a presentation to Council some weeks ago already on the renovation of the older part of Saint-Anselme. So we're going to combine the two ice surfaces with a refrigeration system, which is more sustainable. It's up to code, new systems, new stands, a new interior on the Saint-Anselme side, and a new dehumidifier and air conditioner on the Saint-Anselme section, and an integrated system between the two ice services. Yeah, the two ice services within the AJ Leblanc complex. So we're asking to award the contract to Avondale Construction for a cost of $5,311,834, and engineering services to Englobe for an amount of $200,000 plus HST. So we're still under discussion with our future users, our community groups. This is a project that is going to have an impact on the ice season. But if we want a system and install that is up to code and renovated, it is going to bother people. We're working with everybody to work on to find alternatives. Staff is following this closely, and people have already been told that this is going to start. As soon as the work starts, people will be told, and communications will continue until the end of the project. So this is for your approval this evening to award the contract and to start ordering parts so we can start and finish on time. Thank you. Who would like to read? Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the contract for the project entitled Renovation Towards Net Zero Arthur G. Leblanc Center to the lowest bidder, Avondale Construction Limited, at the cost of $5,311,834 plus HST. Authorize Englobe Corp to undertake engineering services related to said project at the cost of $200,000 plus HST, and further authorize that these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-30-12-7607, General Capital Budget, AJL Renovations. And I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I just wanted to talk about the impact it's going to have on two groups specifically. We had asked questions at the time when we're still just in the planning stage, but it seems to be much more specific now, but I'd like to confirm the information we'd received back then, especially in terms of pickleball. We had asked questions and we were told that the pickleballers would still have access to the washrooms and so on. Now here I'm seeing the ice services, both will be closed during the summer. What access will remain to the building so that for the pickleball club? Well, Mr. Raymond might have an answer. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yes, next summer, of course, for the main entrance, the current main entrance to the arena, that will still remain accessible to the pickleball club, but they'll have to go around the building next summer, and they're aware of that. This project, this part of the project is for, like Mr. Melançon mentioned, is for all the mechanics, the stands, the benches. We'll come back to the locker room another time, but the intention is to give direct access to the pickleball club on the Saint-Anselme side to allow them to use the facilities more easily. Once the work is done, they'll also have access to a locker room during their summer season after that. But yes, during the construction phase, there won't be a choice. They're going to have to go around to the main entrance and use the washroom facilities on the Olympic side next summer. But at least they'll have access. Yes, I just wanted to confirm. Yes. Now, in terms of minor hockey, they have offices there, and they have offices that they use. What is the period of time during which they will not have access to their offices? Will they? Well, they should have access to their offices the whole time. We're not saying that there might not be a couple of weeks here and there, but groups will be advised, because on the second floor, on the Saint-Anselme side, it was renovated a few years ago, and on the Olympic side will still be available. Thank you. Thank you. Just a question of clarification. When we talk about an integrated refrigerated system for both ice services, does this mean that if there's a problem with the system, both ice services will be closed? No, you can operate the two ice services independently, but the refrigeration will all be from one central location. And we're going to have redundancies, so to ensure that they don't both go down at the same time. Thank you. Any other questions? If none, all those in favor will signify by a nay. No, contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. So 12.1 bylaw, Mr. Melançon. Yes, the next two items are procedural bylaws. Both of them are reading of summary and then third reading by title. So this is for your consideration 12.1 and 12.2. Okay, 12.1, who would like to read the summary? That's what I thought. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. Bylaw A-4 2024-1, procedural bylaw of the Municipal Council of the City of Dieppe, pursuant to the authority vested in it by the Local Governance Act, SNB 2017, Chapter 18, Paragraph 10 2A, and pursuant to the New-Brunswick Regulation 2018-84 under the said Act, the Council of the City of Dieppe duly assembled enacts as follows. The articles of bylaw A-4 2024-1 remain unchanged from those set out in bylaw A-4 2024 adopted on April 22nd, 2024, with the exception of the addition of the following paragraph to section 10.3. The chairman may, at his discretion, limit the length of speeches and the number of times each person may ask questions, but should make it clear beforehand that the purpose of the limit is simply to improve the efficiency of the meeting and to allow the widest possible expression of opinion. In exercising this discretion, the chairman must take into account the council's desire to give a fair place to the voice of citizens, particularly on issues having a direct impact on them. And I so move it as a summary. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Godbout, second by Councillor Brito on the question. I don't see any questions. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented.
Alors pour la lecture par titre,
So for reading by title only, Your Worship, Bylaw A4 2024-1, procedural bylaw of the Municipal Council of the City of Dieppe, I so move by reading on, or by title only. Moved by Councillor Godbout, again seconded by Councillor Brito. On the question, I'm seeing no questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as in third and final reading. Item 12.2 now. Mr. Melanson. This is dealing with parking on Ruisseau Street at all times on the west side from Gauvin Road to Thériault Street. So the summary reading is for your consideration this evening. Who would like to read the summary?
Monsieur Lantaigne.
Councillor Lantaigne, please. All right. A bylaw, procedural bylaw, or bylaw C1 2024-2 relating to traffic and parking. So pursuant to the authority vested in it by the Local Governance Act and the Motor Vehicle Act, RSNB 1973, Chapter M17, the Council of the Municipality of Dieppe duly assembled enacts as follows. The sections and schedule of bylaw C1 2024-2 remain unchanged from those set out in bylaw C1 2024-1 adopted on September 23, 2024, with the exception of the following change to Schedule A entitled Prohibited Parking. The addition of Section 61 as follows. 61, Ruisseau Street, A, at all times on the west side from Gauvin Road to Thériault Street. I so move. Moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Seeing no questions, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. And for third reading by title only. Bylaw C-1 2024-2 relating to traffic and parking. I so move by title only. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. Still the case? All right. So those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
La loi sur la gouvernance locale, c'est-à-dire à l'item plutôt.
So this resolution carries in third and final reading. And that brings us to item 13, notice of motions. Did we receive any notices? No? Okay. I would just like to take this opportunity to send a message. I don't want to take up your time, but I just want to convey that during the holiday season, I just wanted the public to know that the City Hall will be closed from noon on December 24th and will reopen on January 2nd at 8:30 a.m. So that's just for public information. And our next council meeting in January will be on January 20th for the Committee on Strategies and Policies. And one of the items will be the tree bylaw. So an assessment and a survey have been conducted. And so the Environmental Service and Planning Department will be presenting that. And the next public meeting of council will be January 27th. So just so people don't show up on January 13th, there will be no meeting on the 13th. Thank you. All right. No requests for additional information. So, councillors, let's start with Councillor Lanting this evening. Thank you, Your Worship. So first of all, winter, we've seen that winter has finally arrived. I just want to thank in advance citizens for their patience. I know it can be frustrating traveling, but we have to work with Mother Nature, and our staff is doing their job to clear the streets. But since this is the last meeting before Christmas, I wanted to take this opportunity to wish happy holidays, safety to all staff and residents of the city. So that's all for me. Thank you. Councillor Godbout, please. Thank you, Your Worship. Just one announcement. On December 6th, I participated in a commemorative action or event of the women who were killed at the Montreal Polytechnique. So it was a cold day. And I remembered that, I might have been shivering with cold, but those people must have been shivering out of terror. So, and it makes me think of people who experience domestic violence. So this was we hope that December 6th will become a day of peace, where family and men will be able to talk, and where we can find new ways of presenting violence against women. This phenomena continues to exist in our society. So we need to develop respect amongst people. So let's hope, and I'm sure that December will bring us other news and other reasons to gather. I hope that you will have a lot of health and happiness, and I wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Councillor Turgeon-Roy, please. I had a question for information, and I might repeat myself. I know I've asked this in the past, but at one point, when we opened up Norbert Street and the whole idea of densification, the new apartments, we talked about doing a traffic study on Tranquille Street and Centrale in that area. So I don't know what the results of that were. Are improvements being planned, especially on Centrale Street, especially Tranquille Vanier in that area? There's more and more traffic on those streets, and there's a lot of speeding as well. So I don't know if things are being looked at for the coming year, improvements for that area. I'm looking at Marc-André, but thank you. For next year, we're doing work on Vanier because Vanier connects Centrale and Amiro. So it's a minor connector street. So we want to install things that will calm the traffic. So that's what we're planning for next year. And it's a pilot project. And if that works well, then we'll maybe look at other streets in that area. But, you know, we don't want to put every traffic calming measures everywhere. For Norbert and Centrale, we're going to be doing assessments soon. We've acquired a machine to do that work. So we'll be doing checking. And so we'll put those on our list. The biggest problem that I see is speeding, you know, from what I've seen on that street. You know, just at Joseph and Tranquille, there's a four corner stop. And then after that, it's straight ahead. And so I don't know. So it was just more of a comment, but thank you. Thank you for looking into it. I appreciate it. Last thing, I just want to remind people to shop local for the holidays. And a few suggestions. There's great programming at the Dieppe Arts and Culture Center, so why not shop and get your gifts there? Go to their website for their ticket office. And I would like to join my colleagues as well to wish a happy holidays to all residents. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Like Councillor Godbout, I too participated in a commemorative event of the Polytechnic tragedy, and it was at the engineering department at the University of Moncton, and I was with the Lieutenant Governor, the Minister of Women's Equality and Early Childhood, and it was a very touching ceremony. They had a survivor of domestic violence speak at the event, and what she said was incredible. It was incredible that she even survived what she did. It was a very interesting event, so I just wanted to say that. And me too, I would like to wish happy holidays to all my colleagues around the table, to staff, and to the residents of Dieppe. Thank you, and that's all for me. Thank you. Councillor Brideau, please. Thank you, Your Worship. I too it goes without saying that you know, I wish all of you a happy, peaceful, safe holidays, and the Santa is saying ho 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 to you. Thank you. Councillor Jeannet. Thank you. Happy holidays to all staff, residents of the city, and my colleagues around the table. That's all for me. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Godet. Well, I wanted to start because that's what I wanted to say too, but so I too want to wish everyone a happy holidays, residents and staff, councillors, happy New Year's, and happy 2025. Great, thank you. Well, same for me. Jean-Marc? Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to add a little detail. You know, we're wishing each other happy holidays, but I also like to, you know, to say that our spouses, you know, they put up with us when we're out attending committee meetings. So I wish them a happy holidays, and I thank you for their patience with us, councillors. Yes, so to all spouses. Well, that said, me too. I would like to thank all counselors for for all the work that we did. Thank you to all staff. We've had a phenomenal year in every regard. And if you don't think so, I think if there's a lot of people that are looking at us with envy, but it's not luck. It's thanks to the work that every one of us and every one of our residents does. They keep us motivated when we meet with them at different events. So I want to wish happy holidays to all our staff, my colleagues, and of course all residents. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year. On that, have a nice evening.